Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Liam Kilby. I'm the Associate Director for the MBA Recruitment and Admissions team here at the school. Coming to you today from the school, I'm in one of the lecture theatres that you might be sat in if you're an MBA student at some point in the future. And I'm going to spend about 45 minutes to an hour talking you through a little bit of information about the MBA programme here at Oxford. Let me just do a bit of housekeeping first. We're going to have a Q&A session towards the end. There is a Q&A function on Zoom. If you can use the Q&A function to send your questions through, we'll go through as many as we can in the Q&A session at the end of the session. If there's a question that comes through, I have my iPad here, I can see it come through. If we're on a slide at the time and the question is relevant to that slide, then I may go ahead and answer it straight away. Otherwise, I'll get through as much of them as I can towards the end of the session. So hopefully everyone can hear me okay and can see the screen. We're going to make a start, beginning with probably a picture of Oxford that if you've Googled the city, if you've done some research into the city, this is kind of quintessentially what you would expect to see. This shows some of the colleges of the city. It shows the Radcliffe camera, that circular building at the front of the picture. This is a glimpse into what your life as an Oxford student will be. Part of your day-to-day experience will be spending time in the college. You'll be a member of one of the colleges as an MBA student, and we'll talk a little bit more about colleges in a few slides' time. But this is just to give you a bit of a snapshot of the city, and then also a little bit of a snapshot of the business school. This is the business school. I'm sat in here today, and you'll notice straight away it's slightly different architecture, a bit more modern looking compared to that traditional Oxford architecture in the previous picture. And this is where you'll spend most of your working day. Your 9 to 5 working day will be spent here in the business school. You'll be in a lecture theatre like I am this morning. You'll be in the library. You'll have some breakout sessions in some seminar rooms. You'll eat here. The faculty offices are based here. And so all of the things that you need, all of the facilities, all of the resources that you'll need for your MBA are based here. And your 9 to 5 working day will be in the business school. Outside of that will be based around the colleges, and again, more on colleges a little bit later. One of the questions that my team and I get a lot when we're talking to potential candidates is, why should we consider a one-year MBA? Traditionally, MBAs, as everybody knows, have been more often than not a 2-year program. Some of the European schools have an 18, 15, 20-month program. At Oxford here, we have a fairly strict, straightforward 12-month program. You join in September, you come back the following September to graduate, and in that 12 months, we'll go through in a few slides' time what the curriculum looks like. There are some obvious reasons why a one-year MBA is beneficial. You're spending less time away from work. You're spending less time away from earning salary. You're going back to your career much quicker than in a 2-year program. But there are some things to think about if you're on the fence between a 1-year or 2-year program. If you're somebody that is looking to make a fairly drastic change in your career, going from one geography to another geography, changing the sector you work in, changing your job function and changing your sector, that kind of fabled triple jump that people talk about, then just bear in mind the time constraints of a 1-year program and see if you think that you have enough time to achieve the career goal that you're aiming to, because that fundamentally is why you want to do the MBA. It drives your career, it transforms your career, it accelerates your career and can pivot your career as well. So a 1-year program is possible for a triple jump. We have people that do it. We've got some career stats later on in the session that will talk a little bit about how many people try and change things in their career. But it does come with a slight caveat that you have to be very organized. You have to be engaging with that careers team very early on and keeping them engaged throughout your 12 months. And you can't really allow yourself to be distracted by too many extracurricular things, because your focus has to be on making that career change a realistic one. We do have a 2-year program. It isn't a 2-year MBA. It's called the Oxford 1+1, and it's called that because you do 2 different degrees. You do a 1-year master's degree in the wider university first, and then you do the 1-year MBA in your second year. So it's a 2-year program made up of 2 different master's degrees, and you can really bolt on something very interesting to your MBA. You might want to do a master's in public policy at the School of Government here at the university. You might want to do something around the social science of the internet or water conservation, something in the School of Geography. But whatever it is you're looking to do, it gives you 2 years in Oxford. It gives you 2 different degrees that complement each other very well. And it gives you an opportunity to really get into a depth of learning in that first year and really understanding at a deep level the area you want to specialize in, and then applying the breadth of the 1-year MBA and the business mindset and the knowledge you can get from that in your second year, so that when you graduate, you really are equipped to go on and do incredible things in your chosen career. We're not spending a huge amount of time today on the 1+1. There is a 1+1 session that I am running specifically on the 11th of September. It's on our website. Sign up for the event if you are thinking about the 1+1. We'll go into it in a lot more detail at that time. So this is the 1-year MBA at a glance. You'll notice that we've split this slide into 3 main academic terms. That's Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity. They're the names of the terms we have here at Oxford. But before we get into those main terms, I want to talk about something that's new this year. The pre-program on the very left-hand side of that slide gives you an opportunity from the beginning of August. It's happening now for the incoming class, to get into some online learning with some video content, some asynchronous content done by faculty here at the school that gives you an opportunity to get up to speed in certain areas. So you might be CPA qualified, working in accounting, and think, okay, well, that accounting module that I have to do will be fairly simple for me. I cover this stuff in my day-to-day job. But not everybody has that knowledge of accounting, for example. And so somebody coming in from a marketing background or somebody coming in from a consumer goods background might not have that accounting knowledge or know-how or expertise. And so they might want to dip into the accounting pre-program module, which covers some of the main competencies, the main terminology, the main aspects of the subject that you'll learn in that core module that everybody must do, so that you feel comfortable as an individual coming in, that when you have your first academic session with faculty in this lecture theatre, that you don't feel already a little bit out of your depth in accounting. And I've chosen accounting as an example, but you could choose financial analytics, you could choose behavioral management. We could talk a lot about lots of different core modules. There's a pre-program online module for all of those core modules, and they're the ones that are in red on the screen in front of you. What's really neat about the pre-program is that when you're in the core modules, you can go back and reference materials in the pre-program for that module should you want to. So it remains open for the whole year. So if you're studying for an exam or you're studying for some kind of assessment aspect of your module and you want to go back to the pre-program and watch a video again or go over some content again, you are able to do that. The idea behind this pre-program is to get people up to the same level, so that when faculty have you in a room and there's a whole range of experiences and diverse people around the lecture theatre, he or she, the faculty member, can then pitch the learning to a level where they feel comfortable that everybody is at least the same basic level of understanding, and it won't go over anyone's heads and people won't struggle to really grasp those concepts. So the pre-program is open from August. You'll join in September. It's not really mandatory. There's no kind of check that you've done it. There are some tools where you can self-assess along the way. So if you want to check your progress and check your learning, you can do those things. But nobody's really going to pull you to one side on the first day of term and say, oh, well, you haven't done the pre-program, so you're not ready to join. That does not happen. We would encourage you to get into the pre-program as heavily as you want to and as heavily as you have time for, but there's no mandatory requirement that you complete all of those modules. So going into the semesters, you'll notice those red modules are there in the first semester. You'll solely be doing core modules, the fundamentals of business in semester 1. And then in semester 2, you'll finish off those modules and you'll start to get creative and think about your electives and personalizing your learning in the way that you want to. We've made a bit of a change this year and changed it from a 60% core modules and 40% customization and electives. And we've switched it. So it's 40% core modules now and 60% customization and electives, which gives you a chance earlier on in the year to finish off those fundamentals of business and then start to think, okay, well, my individual personal path through the rest of this MBA is governed by my career plan, and my career plan kind of dictates to me that I should be taking this set of electives. And so you'll take 10 electives halfway through the second semester, and all of the third semester will be electives. And then in the summer, you have a choice of 3 things. You can stay in school if you want to and do 2 extra electives, taking it up to 12 from 10. You can do an internship, or you can do a strategic consulting project, or an SCP, as we abbreviate it to. And the SCP is like a group project. You'll go with a small group of students who have also elected to take that option, and we'll place you into industry somewhere around the world, and you'll act as a group of consultants to that industry. So you're not joining a consulting firm, you are acting as consultants, helping something like a startup, a charity, a multinational, whatever scale you're looking for. You'll go in and you'll act as a group of consultants and help them improve an efficiency or overcome an obstacle, as you would be if you were really a consultant in your career. So that's obviously for something that allows people to get a foot into a consulting industry that maybe have no experience of that. The internship, obviously a solo project where you can go and be an intern in a company or a sector you want to get your foot in the door of, or the extra electives allow you to stay in school and get some more theoretical learning from the faculty here over the summer. And in terms of split, I would say probably 40% of people take an elective, 40% do an internship, and the remaining 20% do the SCP. So that's all of the mandatory section of the curriculum. Everything in the top 4/5 of that screen is fundamentally, you have to do that. That's core. And then below at the bottom, you've got a few extracurricular, co-curricular options should you want to. So Finance Lab gets people into private equity and investment banking. Consulting Development Project program is a 12-month program that gets you ready for case study interviews and understanding the mindset of a consultant. And then the Social Impact Lab is designed there to get you into thinking about impact and how your role as a small business owner, how your role as an entrepreneur, how your role as maybe someone working in corporate social relations allows you to understand what impact your company, your role, your multinational, your startup, whatever size it is, can have on the region and the world around us. And then underpinning everything is a talent development program that is supported by the careers team. So the careers team will think about the practical skill set that we hear companies are looking for when they hire MBAs. And we're talking about public speaking. We're talking about managing large and diverse teams. We're talking about handling difficult conversations in managerial positions. And we at the school will teach you the fundamentals of business and the theory of business, and we'll do that extremely well. And then the careers team will take you through an optional set of year-long workshops that hone those personal, softer skills. So when you graduate from the program, you have the mindset of the business leader, but you also have the practical skill set of the business leader. So you can go and implement your ideas and put them into practice in the real world outside of the business school bubble. This just shows a few of the electives that are currently on offer. 2 things to say about this slide. One is this is not all of the electives. We can't fit them all onto one slide. It would be too small. You wouldn't be able to read them. And the electives change each year. So some of these may drop off by the time you apply. Even if you're applying for stage 1, which we'll talk about in a second, this time next year, some of these electives may no longer be available. So please just take these with a pinch of salt. It's an ongoing organic project to make sure we're offering the right, correct, contemporary, relevant electives to the business world out there. And so these electives may change over the course of the next year or 2, and almost definitely will change a little bit over the course of the next year or 2. This just shows a little bit of the front screen of the pre-program that I mentioned earlier. You'll see here there's an option there for every core module. You'll click into that. You'll have access to videos and an online library of resources and content filmed and recorded by our faculty to help you get through that and get up to speed for the term when it fully starts in September. A little bit about our class profile. This is the current class that are coming up to graduation in a few weeks. There'll be a brand new class starting in September. We haven't finalized that class yet, so these stats will be updated in about a month's time. But for now, this is the 23-24 cohort that are about to graduate. The class size doesn't really change that much. It's been as low as 313 one year. We had 350 one year. It will hover somewhere between those two numbers, thereabouts. It's always very internationally diverse. Nationalities is always quite high. International students is always very high, more than 92 to 93%. This year, 97. The coming year that are about to start, a similar number again. This year, we had 51% women, which we're very proud of. We're the first school on an MBA in Europe to do that. We're only the third school in the world to do that for their full-time MBA. Turns out that getting it is hard. Keeping it is harder. I don't know if we'll get to 50% female for this coming class that starts in September. As I say, we're still finalizing that class, so there's a chance, but I would expect more likely be 47, 48%, I would think, for the incoming class. The average years of work experience and the average age of the student doesn't really change that much. It's always around 5 to 6 years average work experience and always around 28 to 29 years old. And the number of sectors that come in is often quite varied. And that's one thing I want to focus on a little bit here on this slide. When you do your research into MBAs, guys, when you do your research into schools, a lot of schools, especially in Europe, will say, but look how diverse we are. And what they mean by that, and they're not wrong, but what they mean by that is, look how many international students we have, how many nationalities we have. That really isn't that unique in a European school. We have 63, 64 nationalities. INSEAD has something like 70 plus nationalities. LBS has 70 plus nationalities. We're all very international in terms of the cohort. We all have maybe 5 to 6 to 7% UK students, domestic students, and everyone else is international. So if somebody says, look how diverse we are, and it's just internationally diverse, then I would respectfully challenge them and say, okay, well, what other aspects of diversity do you have? And one thing that I think we have that I think we're quite good at is understanding the importance of professional diversity. So, and I'm going to talk about two schools with a glowing recommendation because they're incredible schools, but I'm going to use them as a bad example. So forgive me. LBS is an incredible school, but it's well known for finance, and INSEAD is an incredible school, but it's well known for consulting. So if you're thinking about finance or you're thinking about consulting and you haven't already, you should definitely look into those schools and research them and think, are they the right school for you? What I would say, though, is that because of what they're known for, they attract a lot of people from those areas. So if you go to LBS and you think it's the right school for you to get into a finance career, you're probably correct. It could be a very good school for you. But when you sit down in a classroom in a lecture theatre, you'll notice, at least my suspicion is, you'll notice that a lot of the people around you are also there for finance or have come from finance or think like a finance professional. And the same for consulting at INSEAD. We are very good at finance and consulting here. So we could be the right school for you as well. But on top of that, we're not really known for one particular output. We're known to be a school, I think, that thinks about responsibility as a leader and impact as a leader. But that could be impact in a startup, that could be impact working in CSR, that could be an impact working in a multinational, from impact from within big business. So because that impact and that responsibility can be applied to lots of different sectors, we probably don't have a majority of people coming in from one area, like an LBS might do, or an INSEAD might do. And so you can see on the screen here, we still have large chunks come from finance and consulting, but we have this global industries piece of the pie where we have people from architecture, or we have people coming in from education or healthcare, people working in law, people working in consumer goods. We have an Olympic athlete in the class this year. We have another Olympic athlete who just competed in Paris coming in a month's time. And so I think when you talk about diversity and you go around the lecture theatre that we're in today, and you see people raise their hands and the faculty member has said, what does this question on the PowerPoint slide mean to everybody? I think the diversity of answer you get, the diversity of thought that you get, the different aspects and different learnings and different professional experiences that come with that diversity make that debate and that conversation a little bit richer at a school like Oxford compared to a school that is known and very well known and is incredible at that one particular output. So when you think about diversity, think about what it is that you're looking for from diversity, and think about which school that you know gives you that in the best way. Just a few slides about the careers team. The careers team are here to help you achieve your career goals. That goes without saying. It's a two-way conversation with the careers team. We have you for 1 year. What that means is, even if you're looking for a fairly simple change, staying within the sector you're in, but going to a different employer, maybe you have to have a clear and focused idea of what that is when you arrive. In a 1-year program, you have some time to see what sparks your interest. You can explore a little bit, but time goes quickly and will be keeping you busy with those core modules in that first semester. So have an idea about what career you're looking for when you come in. You'll have put it in your application anyway, and then speak to the careers team when you first arrive and get them on board as quickly as you can, so that while you're in the lecture theatre learning the fundamentals of business, they can be in the background connecting you to the right companies, bringing the companies onto campus to meet with you, bringing those companies onto campus to interview you, sending you down to London or to further afield to go and meet these companies. But it comes from you. We'll set up a whole range of offers of services and workshops that the careers team will put on for you, but it's on you to go to them and make the most of them and engage with the careers team as much as you can. It doesn't actually start when you first join. It starts before you join in September. So this little pathway shows you the career support that has been open and available to people coming in this September. So from the beginning of June, the careers team have been talking to them about their aspirations and their goals and making sure that we understand that when they get here, we can hit the ground running straight away. So I'll leave this slide up just for a little bit so you can see some of the detail on there. But I think the message is here, you have the chance to engage with the careers team 3 months before course starts in June, before you get here in person in September. The more you use the careers team in that 3 months, the more realistic, the more likely the outcome of your career goal being achieved is when you first arrive and by the time you graduate a year later. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change your mind, folks. You can. If you come in with a fairly firm idea that I know I want to go and do investment banking, it's a Goldman Sachs job for me or nothing, Liam, thank you. But then you're here for a couple of months and you think, you know what, actually, I had my career blinkers on, but actually my head's been turned by something else. My imagination has been sparked by something else. You definitely can change your mind, but please just bear in mind, 2 months have gone, you've got 10 months left now. And so there's even less time. So change your mind if you want to, but tell the careers team. Go to them and say, look, my focus has changed, my goal has changed. This is now what I'm looking for instead. And they'll work with you to make that happen. But the worst mistake you can make coming into any 1-year program is waiting until January or February to think about, okay, well, I've been here for 5 months now. I think I want to go and do this. It's just that bit harder to achieve that in the time you have left. So you can change your mind. You can take a little while to find out what you want to do, but just engage the careers team at every step to make sure they're supporting you as effectively as they can do. This shows a little bit of outcomes, of metrics that matter. This is from our careers report. There's just a bit of a snapshot on the next couple of slides of where people have gone in terms of geography and sector. There's some salaries on average salaries on the next slide. We'll talk through that. But if you want more detail about these areas, I would recommend you go to our website, you download the careers report and you read through it thoroughly because it has a lot more detail that we can show you on these slides. So you'll see here in terms of industry where people have gone. You'll see here in terms of industry destination over the last 4 years. How has it changed? What I was saying before, we're not really known for one particular thing. So there's a fairly even spread between finance and consulting. No matter where you go, they're still the 2 top desired outcomes from an MBA. And that's no different here. We can help you get that career should you want that. But you'll also see some tech, you'll see some global industry, you'll see some other areas as well, social impact and entrepreneurship. And geographically, this is where people go. And this is the average salary that people are earning just from this most recent graduating class. This is the class that graduated last September and then reported their outcomes over the course of the following 6 months that formed the details for our careers report that we put on the website back in May and June of this year. So this is where people are going geographically and the average salaries that people are earning. Just a quick few minutes about the colleges. This is another picture, another angle of the same picture that we showed you at the very beginning. That's the Radcliffe Canberra, the circular building in the middle, obviously from the air this time. You'll see some colleges, you'll see these kind of quads that are surrounded by these beautiful walls and architecture. You'll be a member of one of the colleges. And the best way to explain the college is that your 9 to 5 working day is spent in the business school, and your social life, everything outside of your work, will be based around the college. So you'll be a member of a college. You might live in a college. There's accommodation in those 4 walls. There's graduate accommodation in separate buildings outside of those 4 walls. You may also choose to rent privately if you want to. You have that option. You might join a sports team. You might join a society. You might be a hobby that you really want to do, an activity you want to try for the first time. You might want to get up at 5 a.m. every day in the winter and go rowing on the river and try out for the boat race against Cambridge in the spring. If you want to, you can. You'll have time to do those things, but they'll all be based through and around your college. There are 40-ish colleges at the University of Oxford. About 30 of those will take MBAs. And what that means is you'll have a choice of 30 colleges. And people will say, well, Liam, well, how do I pick? Because you pick which college you would like. Well, how do I pick? And some of the more common reasons that people use might be, well, some colleges are graduate only, and some are undergraduate and graduate. So if you're like me, getting on in years, and you think, I've spent my time as an 18, 19-year-old freshman, sophomore, I don't want to be surrounded by people running down the corridors at 2 a.m. making noise because I need to get my head down and get rest and study, then maybe a graduate college is the one for you. Other people think about, well, there's a particular sport that I want to play, and in my research, that college has the best sporting facilities for that particular sport. So that's the college that I want. Some people go with geographical distance from the business school. That Oxford is not a big city, guys. You can walk everywhere. You can certainly cycle everywhere. But there are some colleges that might be a 20-minute walk away versus a 2-minute walk away from the business school. So you might think, well, convenience, I'll just live a bit nearer to the business school because I'll spend a lot of my time there anyway. Other people think there's a really famous member of the alumni community from the University of Oxford, and he or she, they went to this college, and so I want to walk down the same corridors that this person did because they've always inspired me. And I want to feel what they felt. I want to walk the same path that they walked. And that might dictate what college you want to go to. So you'll have a list of reasons. They're all very personal to you, but they're all equally valid compared to another person's reasons. And you pick your college at the point where we've interviewed you already, we've made you an offer of a place on the MBA already, and you pay your deposit to secure that place. It's at that point when you pay your deposit that you tell us which college you would like. This is a little animated video of us winning the MBATS trophy. This was not this year, this is 2023. The class that graduated last year. We didn't win it this year, sadly, but last year we did. The MBATS is a mini Olympic Games between business schools held in Paris every year, hosted by HEC in Paris. And we send 200, 250 students to compete in some traditional sports. There's some basketball, there's some rugby, there's some rowing, some non-traditional activities. There's a battle of the bands. I think chess is in there. I think there's a dance competition in there as well. So if you're not as athletic as some of your colleagues, but you've got musical talent, you've got some grandmaster chess level ability, then you can still compete and take part and hopefully help us bring that trophy back to Oxford in the spring of the year that you join. This is just one example of things that are run through the colleges that take part of your Oxford experience. As I mentioned before, it's really kind of your social life. There'll be formal dinners, there'll be parties. You'll have friends in other colleges, so you'll go and visit them and eat dinner in their dining halls and vice versa. There'll be speakers events. There'll be the Oxford Union where you can take part in a debate should you want to. There's a whole range of experiences outside of your 9 to 5 working day that are a real treasure trove of you to dip your toe into, again, with the caveat that you're here for 12 months. And so balance that as well as you can with your MBA work. We don't want people to miss out on experiences, because how often will you be at Oxford to study for a year? Not that often in your life, probably. So make the most of it as much as you can, but don't forget you're here for your career, you're here for the MBA. And so there's a balance that has to be struck. There's a prioritization of time that has to be struck to make sure that you're able to achieve both what it's like to be an Oxford student in the wider university, but also focusing on the MBA while you're here. This is a slide that talks about application requirements. It's fairly straightforward. This is all on our website. I'm sure there'll be some questions about this, so I'll save those for the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll get bogged down too heavily on this one slide. Just to say, everything on this slide is mandatory, but nothing is going to make or break your application on its own. So we'll need an undergraduate degree from you. We'll need a GMAT or a GRE. In anticipation of this question, no, we don't have a preference. We're looking for 2 references, 1 academic, possibly both professional. Ideally, at least 1 has to be professional. This is a vocational degree. We want to understand how you perform in your career. And so having 1 professional referee is probably something that we would expect. 2 years of experience before you apply. If you're thinking about, well, I'll have 2 years before I join, but I only have 1 year when I apply, then have a conversation with us. That might be okay, depending on what your profile is and what you're looking to do post-MBA. There's 1 supporting statement we'll ask you to write that simply just says, is there anything you want the academic committee, the admissions committee to know about you that we can't see in your application already? And there's an online assessment that's run via the Kira Talent platform. If we have questions about that, we can go through that as well. But essentially, you'll see some pre-recorded videos from my team. We'll ask you a question. You'll have some time to prep, and then you're recording your answer to that question. That's part of the application process. And then there's an interview, should we invite you to an interview. That will be either on Zoom or in person, either here in Oxford or in a city near you if we're traveling out to you at that time of year. For people that don't have English as their mother tongue, as their natural language, then it's possible that you may need an English language proficiency test. There are a couple of ways that you can provide a waiver and not need that. One is educationally, have you finished a degree level qualification that was taught in English within the last 2 years? Or do you use the 4 aspects of English, reading, writing, speaking, listening, day to day in your 9-to-5 work, in your career? And you can provide a letter from the company stating, this is how I use English in my job. And that can sometimes be enough to provide a waiver that you don't need to sit a language test. If you have questions or concerns about your individual profile and your set of circumstances, then get in touch and we can have a conversation around you and your individual needs. This is just a slide about the deadlines for this coming year. We've added a couple of deadlines compared to the year we've just had. We had 3 in this year. We're going to 5 for the following year. We've done that because we wanted to kind of spread out the volume a little bit. We traditionally have 1 deadline that is very busy. That's always the one that takes place in January. The reason that it's always busy, I think, is because it coincides with a lot of scholarships where the deadline to apply for the scholarship is also January. So if you're not there by January, you can't be considered for these scholarships. So a lot of people go for January for that reason. We've introduced a couple more before Christmas. We had 1 in September last year. Then we had January, and September was fairly big, but January was the biggest January we ever had. So we brought back some extra deadlines before Christmas just to spread that workload out and spread the volume out a little bit. The first deadline is in just over 2 weeks' time, September the 2nd. Then we have 1 every month, October and November, leading up to Christmas. We don't have 1 in December because the Christmas holidays means that it would slow your process down for you as a candidate. There's no real benefit in terms of admission onto the program by applying early. There are some benefits, but not admission to the program. So if people are thinking, oh, I've been told that you have to apply early to get in, that is not the case. Having said that, I would encourage people to apply as early as they can for the following 2 reasons. One is scholarships are given out straight away. So in September, when we start to get applications come in and we interview people and make them some offers, that first group of candidates will get some scholarships, and then some more will go in October and some more will go in November. So if you're waiting until maybe a January or March, some of the scholarships you may have been eligible for will have been given out already. So there's less money to go around. The other reason that makes it beneficial to apply early is that, going back to the college places we talked about, some colleges will take 70 of the 330 MBAs, and some colleges will take 3 of the 330 MBAs. And if you want to be in a college that only takes 3, but you're applying in January, and you've had 3 application deadlines of people applying and getting in and paying their deposits, there's a good chance that those 3 spaces will have been taken by other people. Because as soon as they pay the deposit, they can tell us which college they want. So if you're looking for a college that has a selective process and a small number of people that get in from the MBA, and we can help you with this, we can tell you which colleges take which numbers, then applying early and being at the front of that queue for that college can be very beneficial. But in terms of admission onto the program, there's little difference about when you apply. So the overarching message from me and from the team still is apply when you're ready, and you can put your strongest application in, but bear in mind scholarships and college places will be going from September deadline onwards. So think about when is the best time for you and when can you get your application in. We'll still have offers to give in March. We'll still have some space in the class in March. So don't panic if March is the only stage you can go for. It's okay. We'll still have space for you, but it just gets that bit more competitive as we go through the year, as space in the class starts to dwindle. This is the final slide before the Q&A. Folks, I'll just leave this up for a few minutes. This is our current dean, Sumitra. This is a message that he wanted to send to everyone thinking about applying to the Oxford MBA. I haven't been checking the Q&A box. Forgive me if you haven't sent your questions through yet. Please start to send them through now, and I'll reference them on my iPad in a few minutes, and we'll start the Q&A session. So thank you very much for your attention so far. Hopefully it's been a useful session for you. We'll go on to some questions now. I'm sure there were some waiting for me. What time are we on? Okay, we've got a good 20 minutes for questions, which is great. I sometimes talk too much, so I'm glad that I've left enough time for questions. Okay, let's see what we've got for questions. We've got 14 in there. Anonymous attendee, don't worry about putting your name, guys, that's fine. Will there be opportunity to visit the business school throughout the year? Yes, so we have a number of formal open days at the school. One's coming up in October. It's on our events webpage already, so have a look at that. If you want to come to an open day, for example, you'll have a taster lecture with a faculty member. You'll be in a room like this in the school. You'll have a welcome session by me. It'll be a similar PowerPoint to what you've just seen now. There'll be some existing students. In October, there'll be brand new students that have been in class for 2 or 3 weeks. So they'll tell you about their experiences. We'll provide lunch. There'll be a networking session in the afternoon where you can meet some of the supporting teams. Student funding will be there. The entrepreneurship center will be there. The Skull Center will be there. So all of these kind of extra co-curriculars that run the Impact Lab, for example, they'll be there for you to chat to. So the open days are open to all. If you can't travel for an open day, but you want to come and have a look around, then we do have a way that you can kind of ask for a campus visit. And my team or I will show you around the school, we'll answer your questions. And in some ways, the campus visit will allow us to go into more depth in your personal profile, because at an open day with 80 people in the room, a lot of what you'll find is that we talk about general things that will impact most people. There's little time really to talk about you as an individual and your own set of circumstances. On a campus visit where it's one-to-one, then we can definitely do that in more detail. So go onto the website, you can register for a campus visit, and you can come and meet us in person and we'll show you around. That's definitely an option for you. So yeah, please do get involved as much as you can with that and find a way to come see us, because I do think there's a lot to be said for walking around the school and soaking up the atmosphere and understanding if this is the right place for you. There's a certain importance attached to how it feels when you walk around, and the ambience and the environment. And does Oxford feel like a city you want to live in for a year? So it's very important to come and see us if you have the opportunity. If you can't, don't worry. It's not going to be something that we look more favorably on people that have come all this way to see us in the application process. We understand that not everybody can travel. It's unaffordable for some. You can't get time off work. You've got family commitments. That's okay. So you don't have to come here in person just to make a good impression. But if you have the chance and want to come and see us, we'd love to show you around. Okay, hi Liam, thank you for the session. In respect to the GRE, could you share any insight onto what a sufficient score range might be? Thank you, Matt. Matt's put his name on the question. Sufficient, good word, Matt. Look, I always hesitate with this question because my own personal thoughts about standardized tests are sometimes at odds with what MBA programs say about standardized tests. So I've taken the GMAT, for example, and I know what it takes to get a good score. I know what it takes to get competitive average score. And I know that sometimes standardized tests just are things that people can't get their head around. So my personal answer, Matt, would be we look at GRE and GMAT together, equally weighted, in a frame of reference against your peer group. So for people that you probably know this, there are regional differences around the world based on what an average GMAT score for that country or that continent or that region is. And unsurprisingly, places in the world where standardized tests are common, North America, for example, East Asia, for example, you often find scores are higher from those regions because people have grown up doing standardized tests at different stages of their academic career. They have good access to test prep materials. They can go to maybe a tutor and get some tutoring on preparing for how to take a standardized test, how to take the GRE or the GMAT specifically. Other parts of the world, standardized tests are more of an alien thing. They have less access to test prep materials or test centers. Even people have to travel out of country just to go and sit a test in person if the online one isn't available in their country. So short answer is make it competitive for your peer group, Matt. And I don't know your details, so forgive me if I don't talk about this specifically, but I would say, look, we used to talk about a 650 GMAT. That's the old GMAT, like legacy edition. That's about, I think, a 605, 615 in the Focus edition, the new version that GMAT brought out. We used to say that was a competitive score. In all honesty, for some parts of the world, a 650 probably isn't a competitive score because the vast majority of people come in with a 700 or higher. The GRE equivalent of a 650 is around a 160 in the verbal and a 161 in the quant. What I would say is that there's probably a bit more focus we're putting on the quant side of both the GRE and the GMAT over the next few years. We want to make sure that people are ready and comfortable to handle the quant content of the course itself. And it's fairly rigorous. And so we have to be happy and comfortable that you can handle the rigor of the MBA. So I would say on a GRE to get something like a 160, 161 verbal, 162, 163 on the quant would be a very good score. Now, the message that I want to give to everyone listening is, if you've done the GRE and you think, oh, well, I got a 158, 159, should I not bother applying? Please don't think that. There are lots of other aspects of your application that will be a real strength. Everyone has their strengths. Sometimes it's not standardized tests. It could be that you're being a trailblazer in your career. Your academic record at university, your GPA, your undergrad result could be incredible. It could be that you've got the real personality, the social soft skills that we want to try and teach you on the course in that talent development stream. You could already possess all of those. So there's going to be some strength in your application. Everyone has some strengths. If it's not the GRE score or not the GMAT, then please don't worry. If you have real concerns about your score, get in touch. We'll have a conversation with you. But don't let it be something that stops you from applying completely. But thank you for your question, Matt. 160, 161, I would say ideally as a minimum. 161, 163, perfect. Anything around there would be competitive. And that's really all you're looking for. You've used the word sufficient, but I would use the word competitive, because sufficient means that if you achieve a base level, you're in. And that's a little bit simplistic because it depends who else has applied in your stage with you. We're comparing you against your fellow peers who have applied in your same application round. So it has to be competitive with them, not just sufficient, if that makes sense. What are some things that stand out from an admissions team in the candidate in the post-MBA plan? Questions. Good question. I think the biggest thing that we look for is just a balance between realism and ambition. It's your career. You should be ambitious, right? You should be reaching for the stars. But in a one-year program, we want to make sure that we have the time and the ability and the expertise in the school to help you achieve what you're looking to achieve. So if you come to us and say, I work for Google in a fairly junior marketing role, and I want to go and be an investment banker for Goldman Sachs in London. I currently work in California. So you're changing all three things. That might raise some alarm bells in our head when we read that, because we think, can we help you do that in a one-year program? This is going to be very selfish, what I say here, guys. It's not good for us as a business school to have alumni struggle to get the jobs that they want. It's not good for you as an alum. It's not good for us as a business school. So we are quite cautious about who we admit in terms of career plans, because we want to make sure that you are achieving what you want to achieve. And selfishly, we want to make sure that we have successful alumni that we can talk about. So make it ambitious, but make it realistic. And it can be a triple jump. As I mentioned earlier, we can help you do that. But just explain to us in your application how you hope to achieve that triple jump. What steps can you take before you even join the MBA to be more familiar with the process, the path you want to take? Is there a pre-MBA internship you can do, or that you've already secured, that can help you in your post-MBA goals? That will alleviate some of those concerns. If you talk about, well, I've already had conversations, Liam, with the hiring team of the company that I'm targeting, and they know me, I'm on their radar. They've told me that in the MBA, I need to focus on this, and this. That's a really good level of research that you've done yourself, and you haven't given us the impression that you're relying on the MBA to do everything for you. That's the question, is, are you helping yourself? Are you being proactive as much as we think you might need to be to then help us help you? That's a very Jerry Maguire moment. I'm showing my age there, but help us help you get achieve the goal that you're looking for. So a good balance of realism, a good balance of ambition. Still, we want you to achieve big things, but sprinkle in there, like pepper it with bits and pieces about how you are hoping to help yourself and what steps you can take before you join the course that alleviate any concerns that we might have in your post-MBA career plan. I hope that answers the question. How long does it typically take to receive scholarship decisions? Good question, because we're changing it this year. We are hoping to, and depending on how many applications we get, this could get quite onerous, but we're hoping to give you your admissions decision and your scholarship decision on the same day. It won't be at the same time. There'll be a few hours in between, but on the Friday morning, we've worked it out that every deadline that you saw on the screen a few slides ago, let me just go back to this one slide. Every deadline on the screen, the decision about whether we are admitting you or not is released on a Friday. Later that day, Friday afternoon, you'll also get a decision on whether you've been given a scholarship. So you don't have to wait really any time at all, a few hours. You'll have to wait a few hours, but on the same day, you'll get a scholarship decision. Now, what that means is, if you don't hear about scholarships, we don't tell people if they haven't got one, we just tell people if they have got one. So if you don't hear anything about scholarships on that Friday, it means that unfortunately you have not been awarded a scholarship as part of your application, as part of your admission onto the school. Just on this quickly, there might be a question in here, but I'll address it now. About 1 in 3 people at the school get some form of scholarship. In the 330 people we have this year, there's about 110, 112 people that have got some form of scholarship. And by some form of scholarship, I mean anything from 15 or 20,000 pounds all the way through to a full scholarship where tuition fees are covered in their entirety and maybe a living expense is given on top of that. So the majority of people do not get a scholarship. Only 1 in 3 do get one. Now, I know everyone at home is probably thinking, oh, that's okay. I'll just be one of the 1 in 3 then. I'll be one of the minority. Of course, I get a scholarship. And I hope you do. I really hope you do. My message to you is, please have a financial idea or a financial plan in place that allows you to attend if, unfortunately, you are one of the majority that don't get a scholarship. Because most of you, and it sounds harsh, guys, and I'm sorry, but it's important that we're honest with you about this. Most of you will not get a scholarship on the call today. Most of you that apply will not get a scholarship. Some of you will, and some of it will be a very healthy scholarship, but most of you won't. So please have in the back of your mind, okay, I'm aiming for a scholarship. I'm putting myself forward for a scholarship. By all means, do that. But if I don't get one, how am I going to afford to be able to go to this MBA? MBAs are an expensive thing. Fees will increase a little bit next year. And so because of that, you need to have a plan in place about how you will afford to come. So in terms of decision, we hope that you'll hear on the same day, on that Friday. And then if you hear, you will then have 30 days to then pay your deposit and secure your place. This is worth saying while I have you, we can be very flexible about your deposit deadline. when you get an offer, we say, congratulations, you're in. Let's say you do get a scholarship. Congratulations, you've got a scholarship. You now have 30 days to pay your deposit and then secure your place on the school. As soon as you pay your deposit, you can pick your college, all the things we've talked about already. If you want to extend that deadline to pay your deposit because you're waiting on other schools to hear about their admissions decision, maybe you're thinking about, is this the right year for me at all? I've just been offered a promotion. I need more time to think about it. Whatever your reason is, we can definitely give you an extension to your deposit deadline. But, and this is important, your scholarship will then fall away if you extend your deposit deadline, and we'll award that scholarship to somebody else. Because in the past, what we've seen, people have applied in September, have been told in October that they are admitted, they've been given a scholarship, and they've just extended their deadline month after month after month. And we want to be flexible. We want to understand that you have things going on in your life that doesn't always mean you can make a quick decision. But that person has then kind of sat on that scholarship for 6 months, and then they've decided to not come. And that scholarship in the meantime could have been used to secure and help somebody else. So we can extend your deposit deadline, no problem at all. But the deadline to accept your scholarship is that initial 30-day period. And if you extend your deposit to beyond that 30 days, your scholarship will be withdrawn and we'll give it to somebody else. I want to be very honest about that up front so people have no surprises. As an entrepreneur, can I have a client write a reference? Yes, you definitely can. It doesn't have to be a manager. It doesn't have to be someone within your own organization. It can be a mentor. It can be a personal reference if you want it to be. Avoid family members for obvious reasons. But really, anybody that knows you well is the right person to write your reference for you. If that's somebody that you've worked closely with as an entrepreneur and they are a client of yours, by all means, we have no issue at all. The only stipulation we have is that they have a professional email address. We don't normally accept a Gmail address. We can do if there's no other way around it, but we would ask your referee to explain why they don't have a professional email address, an institution email address. It's not a blocker. It's not going to make or break your application, but just bear in mind that we would prefer a formal business email address. But yeah, of course, it can be a client, no problem at all. Let's have a look here. There's a question about, given that there are no internships in the one-year MBA program. Not strictly true. There is an internship opportunity in the summer of the one-year MBA program. The question is, how are Oxford MBAs able to position themselves for post-MBA job opportunities? So we do have the internship. It's one of the 3 summer options that I mentioned on that one of those first slides. You can do that, and we can help you secure that internship either through the programs team or through the careers team. We have a range of employers and organizations that will come back every year and seek interns from the MBA. So that definitely is a route that's open to you. Having said that, if there's a new opportunity or a new company that we haven't worked with before for internships, if you bring them to the table, the careers team will help secure that internship for you as well. That is the best way to position yourself if you're looking for a change in industry or a change in sector or job role. The internship is the way to go, but we do offer that. That is part of the option. I wanted to check if the deadline for the scholarship is the same as the application deadline. This is a very good question. If I'm applying in round 1, do I need to submit my Scholl essays in round 1 too? So let me try and say this without sounding confusing, because I confuse myself sometimes. To be considered for Scholl, you must have applied on or before the January window. After January, Scholl shuts off. If you're not already admitted, you're not in the conversation for Scholl. So you can apply in January and still be considered for Scholl, but you can't apply in March. By March, Scholl is too late. You can get onto the program still, but you can't get Scholl. So you can apply in any of the first 4 stages and be considered for Scholl. But yes, your question is right. You must provide your essays, and this isn't just for Scholl. For any scholarship that needs an essay, you must provide your essay for the scholarship at the same time as you submit your application. You can't submit your application, be admitted, pay your deposit, and then send us your Scholl essay. That it has to happen at the same time. So whatever deadline you choose to apply in, make sure your application is complete, first of all, but also make sure you're including any essays you want to be considered for the scholarships. What Scholl and other organizations in the school do for scholarships, every stage, they will go through the people that have applied for their scholarship in that stage and give you a yes or a no in terms of you're being retained or you're being taken forward. And so what that means is by January, when we've had the bulk of the applications for the year, Scholl aren't sitting down and looking at their applicants for the first time. So when September passes, they'll sit down and think, okay, who in stage one has applied for Scholl? It's these 20 people. 10 of these probably aren't what we're looking for. So we'll tell those 10 people straight away, we're not taking you forward for Scholl. Congratulations on being admitted if you're being admitted, but we're not taking you forward for Scholl. And the other 10 will be told, we are keeping you in mind while we wait to see who else applies in the other stages. So they'll do that stage by stage, every stage until January, and then there'll be a final shortlist where they'll interview the final candidates and award the Scholl scholarships around March, April time, thereabouts. But yes, to answer your question, you must provide the essay at the same time as your application. Question about the online application, which I will cover because I didn't cover it very well in the slides. Do I get to see all of the questions in advance or prepare, or will some have to be answered on the spot? Thank you for the question. So the online application is 3 video questions. They are around competencies, and those competencies will be something like teamwork or communication or something around leadership or management skills. So they're the competencies that we're looking for, but you won't get the exact question until you go into the system and you watch the video for the first time. There are a bank of pre-recorded questions for each of those competencies, and you'll get one of those pre-recorded banks of videos at random for your online assessment. Now, there's plenty of time to practice before you go into the real thing. There'll be some practice questions that we've uploaded that don't really go towards your application at all, but just get you comfortable talking to a camera, watching yourself in the screen, understanding how the timer works. Does your webcam work? Is the audio okay? But you won't see the actual question until you go into it proper. You'll still get some time to think about your answers. So you'll click play. You'll watch the short 10-second video where we ask you a question. You'll get about 20 seconds where the screen shuts off and there's a timer that ticks down. 20 seconds to think of your answer, and then your webcam turns on automatically, and it's a 90-second response. So you don't see it in advance. You do get some time to prep, but a lot of it is going to be thinking on your feet, as if you were in a face-to-face interview and somebody asks you a question such as, give me an example of a time you've been in a dysfunctional team, and how did you try and address the dysfunction? You get some time to think, and then you answer. So mostly it's on the spot with a little bit of prep time in between. I've probably got time for 1 or 2 more questions, guys. There's a lot in here, and thank you for sending them through. I'm just sorry that I can't get to all of them. Let me have a look in here. If we get rejected by a college, will the school help allocate us to another one, or is it randomly allocated after? You get 1 pick for a college. If that college is full or decides to go with somebody else, we will find a college for you, but you have no say in that process. We'll put you where accepts you and where still has space for MBA students. That makes your one choice quite tactical, and it means that, you know, we can have a conversation, my team and can have a conversation with you to say, okay, well, this college normally takes 6 people. You've applied in November, and in the first 2 stages, they've taken 4 already. So spaces are starting to dwindle a little bit. Do you want to use your 1 pick on this because it's a bit risky? Or do you want to pick a college that might have more space and is more of a safer option? Now, everyone's got their own risk appetite, right? I spoke to a lady on a one-to-one in America in person last summer. I was there this time last year, and she had her heart set on Christchurch College. It's the one where Harry Potter was filmed. It's a big college. It's the one that most people go and see if you're a tourist. It's like the King's College of Cambridge. We have Christchurch here at Oxford. It's the one that people know about. And she said, I want Christchurch, Liam. And I said, okay, but 2 people get Christchurch out of 330 every year. Are you sure you want Christchurch? And she said, yeah, I'm going to go for Christchurch. And I said, okay, well, fine. Look, someone has to get picked. So if you're happy that your odds are stacked against you and you probably won't get it, and you want to use your 1 pick on that, then who am I to stop you? Go for it and see what happens. In the end, she actually got Christchurch, which was amazing for her and put my entire warning just like pointless. But my point remains, like, there will be some colleges that are quite selective and quite picky, and you only get 1 choice. So use that choice and shoot for the stars and go for Christchurch if you want to, or use that choice and think, actually, I'd be just as happy in another college and I've got more chance of being picked there, because you don't get any say in your second choice. Okay, got time for one or two more. If I can find some quick ones, bear with me. Are there any are there any English language test waivers for applications who might not be financially as strong? I think that question is asking. I think that question is asking about financially being able to afford an English test. I think that's what it's asking. In which case, no, I'm sorry, there's not. The only way that you can waive it is if you've done that degree in English or you work in English every day. Otherwise, there's no financial need waiver of that testing. And that's the same for GMAT, GRE, English tests. There's no financial need waiver, I'm afraid. No. Okay, one more. This will be my last one because it could get a little bit lengthy. What are the factors that determine whether you get a scholarship? What do you need to do to be one of the ones that get a scholarship? If only it was that simple. But good question. There are some scholarships that look for specific profiles, and I would recommend on our website, guys, look at the funding page. There's a whole list of scholarships you can apply for. We do give out a substantial number of scholarships and a substantial amount of money each year, albeit only 1 in 3 get it, but there's a lot to aim for. So aim for all of the ones you think you're eligible for. On the one hand, we have one pot of money that is fully in control of ourselves. That's money that's given to us by the school, by the Said Foundation, and that will go on things like regional diversity. That will go on things like gender diversity. That will go on things like, okay, we have an underrepresented part of the world here. Let's support them because we want more people from that part of the world to make it as internationally diverse and well-balanced as possible. That money will go on things like good GMAT scores. A GMAT score for a scholarship is probably, for some scholarships, more important than it is for admission. You can get into the school with a competitive GMAT, but you probably need an upper percentile GMAT to get a scholarship for the ones that look for GMAT scores. So the short answer is, for the Said scholarship money, the foundation money that we have control of, we give it out for lots of different reasons to lots of different people. And there's nothing you have to do to apply for those scholarships. As soon as you're admitted onto the program, you are considered as a potential scholar. The other side of that conversation is where things like Scholl sit, and where things like Laidlaw and Weidenfeld-Hoffman, these are names of scholarships that you want to look into because these are generally the bigger scholarships. They will have their own selection process. They'll have an essay you'll have to write. There'll be a profile you have to meet. There'll be an interview, almost definitely, you'll have to go through for the scholarship itself. And so for those ones, apply for them if you think you fit the profile, but be aware that because of their larger nature and the amounts are normally higher, it's a very competitive process. So for those ones, Scholl are looking for people that are creating impact. It doesn't have to be entrepreneurs. It doesn't have to be people with their own startup, but you're creating tangible, measurable impact. And not that you have an idea to create impact, that you already are creating impact, that you can then demonstrate what you've done so far and how the MBA will help you scale that impact once you've graduated. Laidlaw is for female candidates only, and that one does look a little bit at financial need, but it also looks at how you've empowered women in your career so far and how you will carry on empowering women in your career post-MBA. So my point is, for those larger scholarships, there's a definite idea in the donor's mind what they're looking for. And the more research you can do to say, do I fit that mold? Do I fit that profile? How do I make myself come across as fitting that profile really well in my essay? That's a really important part of your application. And whoever asked that question and other people in the audience that might have that question, then let's have a conversation with me or with my team, and we can talk to you in a lot more detail about how you can position yourself well for those kind of scholarships. Guys, we've run out of time. I've overrun by a few minutes. I wanted to get through as many questions as I could, but I haven't really even scratched the surface, so I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all of them. Please send your emails through to this email address on the screen. If you have any unanswered questions that I couldn't get to, send them through. My team would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. Find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, ask me questions. We can start some conversations. Hopefully we'll see some applications come through from you in the next few months. But if you're looking for a year or two from now, it's never too soon to start that conversation. So also get in touch even if you're still just kind of like thinking about the MBA at the very beginning of your journey, we still want to hear from you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much for your engagement, and thank you for all of the questions that you've asked. It's been really, really great to get to speak to you this morning and launch the new academic cycle. Applications opened yesterday. If people are really keen and want to get in for that September the 2nd deadline, send them through as soon as you can, and we'll start reviewing you and getting you interviewed. And we hope to see you on campus in the next few months and next few years. Thank you again, and goodbye for now, and hopefully we'll see you soon.